Christine gathers some of the best financial people in the business. And as you can imagine, she knows how to ask really smart questions. So today I'll start off with an introduction of Christine, and I'll cover 3 interviews to give you a flavor of what's in the book. I'll share a few key takeaways from each interview that she does. Plus, I'll share a few of my own tips and tricks that I learned along the way. Greg will handle Q&A for us today, and then we'll open up for general discussion. So the topics that I chose to talk about out of her book are Social Security, taxes, and healthcare. You might ask why I picked these interviews. I believe these 3 topics are foundational to any retirement. And after 9 years, I found a few surprises in almost every chapter. So who is Christine Benz? Her current role at Morningstar is Director of Personal Finance and Retirement Planning. In college, she studied political science and Russian language and culture. Go figure. Her dad was an avid investor and he influenced her. So parents, take note out there, you can really influence your kids. She started at Morningstar in 1993, right out of college, and has been there for 32 years. Her first position, a copy editor, reviewing analyst reports, then moving on to become a fund analyst herself. She has written 3 books, and this is her 4th. She's a guest speaker on many financial programs, including our chapter in July of 2022, in the middle of the pandemic. And her topic was, is this a terrible time to retire? You can find it on our YouTube channel, and Greg gave you the address for that. By the way, I looked, and this recording has 2,500 views. Is Christine popular or what? She recently earned the title of the most influential woman in wealth management. So her first interview, or she calls them lesson, is on Social Security. Christine interviews a lady called Mary Beth Franklin. Mary Beth is a highly respected Social Security specialist. She has written several books, does regular podcasts, and has a website with lots of help. Christine calls Social Security the linchpin for retirees. Together, they present Social Security claiming options with many scenarios and relatable examples, so it really brings it home. They cover when it makes sense to file early, 62, reach your full retirement age, 66 or 67, or when it makes sense to delay. She goes on to describe different scenarios that are really important: couples, singles, or divorced people. And then she gives different couple scenarios: large age differences, large income differences, and finally, survivor benefits. She moves on to sharing her insight about the financial health of Social Security, a very controversial issue and somewhat scary. She bravely offers her thoughts on what the lawmakers might do. Spoiler alert, she believes there will be a fix, adding, though, everybody's going to be unhappy. She goes into more detail on a podcast called The Long View in July of 2020. And I'll put that link for you guys later in the chat box. I visited her website and found personal help available for individuals for as little as $125, or for those who DIY software for $50. The site is called socialsecurityadvisors.com. Christine's key takeaway on this chapter was, if you need the money, you need it. If you're claiming early out of fear, that's like selling stock in a down market. Next up, lesson number 15. Her interview was with Mike Piper. Mike is a CPA. He also has a website with very helpful information called The Oblivious Investor. And yes, he has written several books. He is well known for his free open source Social Security calculator called Open Social Security. Christine starts off by asking Mike questions about tax management in retirement. Oops. He explains it this way. For most of us, our income is salaried and we have little or no control over taxes. But when we stop working and living off of our savings, guess what? We do have some control, but only if we learn and take action early. In the accumulation phase, we create different silos then, and then we keep adding to them along the way. And then eventually that last paycheck comes our way by our choice or somebody else's choice. Eventually we decide to start our Social Security. And then those mandatory withdrawals start age 73, or for some of you, 75. If you've established the right silos in the beginning, made up of the right type of investments, and put reasonable amounts of money in each silo, you can minimize taxes. He suggests that we move from thinking about taxes as an annual event to doing some serious pre-retirement, multi-year planning. He goes on to cover things we need to know. When should we convert a Roth? What withdrawal strategies would work best? Will we pay tax on Social Security? Will we run into Medicare surcharges? Will we be surprised by higher taxes when we start withdrawing from all of these accounts and those RMDs kick in? He then goes on to cover estate planning and charitable giving. He includes what Kiplinger calls the tax bomb. That can surprise many super savers out there, or like me, a person that believed I would be in a lower tax bracket when I retired. For those who don't know, the tax bomb happens when multiple income sources eventually combine, pushing one into a higher tax bracket. And kicker, it also increases your Medicare costs. Think about it. All those various silos out there: Social Security, pensions, sale of a home, dividends, capital gains, rental income, and maybe you even have some more. Now I warn my younger friends, review and adjust just how much you squirrel away in those pre-tax silos. One of the key takeaways from this interview: if you hold your accounts in multiple silos, taxable, pre-tax, or Roth, develop an efficient way to manage them. Next up, Christine interviews Carolyn McClanahan, and this is lesson number 16 on healthcare. She's a practicing financial advisor with a deep understanding on investing and tax planning. But before this, she was a teacher and a physician, and still volunteers today. This range gives her a perspective few have. Carolyn explains retirement in 3 different buckets: healthcare, out-of-pocket needs, and long-term care. So number one is regular healthcare, which is covered by Medicare. She explains the pros and cons of the two paths when you're choosing your Medicare, traditional Medicare or the less expensive option, Medicare Advantage. Note, Medicare is not free. Number two is the out-of-pocket expenses, dental, vision, hearing, and you may have a few more. These may or may not be covered. Yes, Medicare Advantage plans may include these items, but what is covered can be limited and you must go to their providers. Then be aware, insurance companies can and do change these policies, and sometimes every year. This includes drug coverage and drug cost. The third one is long-term care, which is very complicated, expensive, and you may or may not need it. She adds, healthy people may need care for 5 years, while unhealthy people only need it for 2 years. She generously notes Medicare will cover some cost up to 100 days of what is called skilled care. Next, she prepares us for Medicare cost in retirement. And my tip on this one is around inflation. So if you're doing some planning, you might want to add 6 to 8% for those medical expenses. She states in 2024, individual care for a person can be anticipated to be $158K. This kind of aligns with Fidelity's recommendation, where a couple should plan on spending about $350K. She points out, though, this estimate is just for the routine medical expenses, Medicare cost, insurance cost, prescription drugs, leaving us to figure out how to pay for what the medical community calls custodial care, defined as help with daily living expenses. Then she adds, the issue of long-term care is what keeps older people up at night, and there's a shortage of good answers. Christine's key takeaway for this interview was, where you live may have an impact on what type of healthcare and what providers are available. So wise to bear this in mind before you decide where to live. Or if you have or will be buying a long-term care policy and want to move to a rural area, service providers may be limited. And this is where I'll stop talking about that messy world of healthcare and keep on moving to a more positive note. So as I'm sure you could tell, I think this book is a must read. And all of the interviews, all the other 17, are listed on this slide. Information we need to know is it's not about perfection, it's about preparation. 8 of the interviews deal with the non-financial stuff, or what I call the soft skills, while the other 9 interviews deal with financial stuff, describing some of the more strategic moves you may want to take. Some of the people interviewed in the book have even been to our chapter meetings. In addition to Christine, William Bernstein, J.L. Collins, and Mike Piper. And I want to take a little side note here and thank Greg. I know how hard it is to line up speakers. You did an excellent job. So to help plan for a longer view, I've compiled a list of many tools I've gathered from other Boglehead meetings, and many think they're very helpful. So if you want this list of tools, I think we've sent it out once before, but if you don't have it, please put your name in chat, put in the words long view, and over the next week, I'll send you a copy. Overall, this book is spot on. Retirement isn't just a number, it's a strategy. She interviewed the very best in the business. She uses clear, very understandable language and shares tons of tools. Bonus, the key takeaways are excellent. And guess what? She asked all the right questions. So in closing, read the book. Read it early. Read it long before you retire. It's an easy read. You can read 1 or 2 chapters at a time based on what you need to know, and then just put it next to your computer. And that is where I'll end the discussion today and open it up for more.